How's it going, YouTube? Hope you had an amazing weekend. Before we start, please help us out, like this video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're recapping the entire weekend. Up next, Albert Pujols did it. 700 home runs for the machine. You absolutely love to see it. Welcome in to Fantasy Baseball today on Monday, September 26th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White. Today on the show, the latest waiver wire ads for the final week and a half, starter sit decisions. Some big names went on the IL, unfortunately. We'll get to all of it. But how's it going, Scotty? How was your weekend, bud?
Pretty good. Pretty good. We had my younger son's 5th birthday party.
Nice.
And it was a small affair, but it was, it's a good time. Cake, presents, the usual things kids get excited about. And it's a lot of fun. I could come on here and complain about fantasy football for a third straight Sunday, but I don't think I'm going to do that.
Hey, you wound up with the dub, man. That's all that counts.
I am getting a dub. It is a very ugly dub. One of those dubs where it would have been an L to most anybody else in the league. So I can't take much joy in it. I also dropped Alexander Madison last night.
Oh.
And now Dalvin Cook is hurt. Of course. So, I have a feeling if I was 2-0 instead of 0-2, I wouldn't have done that. I kind of low on confidence and flailing and spiraling out of control. And here I am complaining about it when I said I wasn't going to. So sorry about that.
All good. I wonder what the crossover is. I mean, I'd imagine most people who play fantasy baseball also play fantasy football, but I'm sure there's a segment of the audience that does not care about fantasy football whatsoever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I remember that becoming a thing where you could tell the audience was beginning to branch in two different directions instead of being in lockstep. Okay, so baseball's over. I'm going to transition to football. It became people more devoted to baseball, people more devoted to football. But, a lot more people just play fantasy football in general. So you're always going to get some crossover there.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was a good weekend for Scotty, mostly. And it was a great weekend for Albert Pujols, as you mentioned as well. I mean, before we even get into, oh my goodness gracious, this guy, I think the headline of the weekend and one of the truly awesome stories of the season, 42-year-old, for age 42 season for Albert Pujols, puts up 21 homers this year, batting .265 and .863 OPS, and gets himself all the way up to 700 career home runs. Just the fourth player in MLB history to accomplish that feat. It's awesome, Scott. He is the premier hitter. He is the hitter of this generation of the past 20 years. As long as I've been playing fantasy baseball, Albert Pujols was basically a mainstay. But it's awesome.
Well, I mean, coming into the season, I didn't think he had a chance to reach 700.
Yeah.
21 home runs and only 291 at bats. I mean, just pace that out over a full season. It's not what you're expecting from Albert Pujols at age 42. I can't help but wonder, though. I mean, obviously, historic accomplishment. History, saying it's historic doesn't even really do it justice, because fourth player ever to get to 700 home runs. And then, of course, one of the three people like to dismiss it. It obviously happened. Barry Bonds is the all-time home run record holder. But, people have problems with that. People have issues. So Albert Pujols is the fourth to reach 700. And yet, even as amazing and rare of an accomplishment as that is, I kind of have the same feeling with him that I did with King Griffey Jr., who, King Griffey Jr. got to 630 home runs and a very rarely reached total in its own right, exceeding 600 like that. And yet, for both Griffey and Pujols, like once they got over age 30, their production just fell off a cliff. And you can't help but wonder in both cases, if they just aged normally, like what might they have accomplished?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, one of the sweetest swings in baseball history, Scott, with Ken Griffey there. I know a lot of injuries throughout his career too, so that definitely did not help things for him. But yeah, no, it's a good point that you bring up. But yeah, guess the 700 for Albert Pujols, which again we are very excited for the guy. Let's get into the rest of the weekend's action.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Oh my goodness gracious, Scott. Where would you like to begin?
I'll begin with Jose Quintana. You know, it's kind of hard to come up with players you can talk about in an actionable way because it's just kind of rehashing the same list of starts and sits that we gave on Friday's show. Obviously, there's one scoring period left in most leagues. I guess, you know, maybe in some roto leagues you might be able to reset your lineup again next Monday. But yeah, for the most part, it's just those same players we're talking about. Well, one of them, I think, kind of made himself an advisable start with the, you know, he kind of underscored it, underscored how recommendable he is for this upcoming scoring period. And that's Jose Quintana, who on, let's see, which day was it? It was Friday. Jose Quintana at the Dodgers, no less. 6 2/3 shutout innings. This was after throwing 8 shutout innings in his previous start. And I think what's so encouraging about that, you know, obviously the fact he did against the Dodgers, that's great, but like he had so rarely been it seemed like he'd been struggling to go even 5 innings before that. You know, it kind of rendered him unusable. Even though the ERA, he sustained a low ERA in the low 3s, Quintana just wasn't going deep enough into games for it to matter. And so for him to do this back-to-back starts, combined 14 2/3 innings, heading into 2 matchups against the Pirates, gotta feel really good about that. So I can't imagine, like even in like a 10-team league, I would think I'd probably try to find a way to get Quintana in my lineup. It's possible, particularly if you're playing in your league's championship game. Your pitching staff's so loaded and there's so many pitchers in line for 2 starts over a 10-day period. Okay, you might not be able to make it happen, but I think Quintana is more than just you can start him with even more gusto than the usual sleeper pitcher heading into this final scoring period.
Yeah, he was tremendous this weekend. Jose Quintana against the Dodgers, as you mentioned, Scott. And I have him in like 2 or 3 spots, and I bench him in all those, and it doesn't feel good right now.
It made sense, yeah.
Yeah, some of those are head-to-head, you know, championship matchups right now. But in the leagues where I can change my lineup, obviously I'm going to get Jose Quintana back in there against the Pirates for 2 more starts. And if you play in a points league, he is SPARP eligible on CBS. So starting pitcher who has relief pitcher eligibility. He's 67% rostered. And Scott, I know you had John Gray ranked higher than Quintana on your sleeper pitchers list, but I don't know. Have you rethought it? Just because I feel like Quintana's pitched better recently. Like John Gray was fine this weekend. He only gave up 1 hit, but he also only had 1 strikeout. He only had 4 swinging strikes. And I think his matchups are a little bit tougher. The Mariners and the Yankees.
It's not the Pirates twice,
yeah,
right?
Of course. So I'm saying I would take Quintana over John Gray. Have you
that? Look, I still think John Gray's a better pitcher, so that's a tough call. I'll also point out that the second of those starts for Quintana, provided your league is going through the final day of the season, October 5th, the second of Quintana's starts would be on that day, October 5th. So if Pirates insert anybody else, you know, just to, we want to give this guy a spot start, then it's possible Quintana doesn't make that second start against the Pirates.
That's fair.
At this stage of the season, that would not be surprising at all if that happened. So you have to account for that. Let me see when John Gray starts. So John Gray's second start would be on the second to last day of the season, which gives a little more cushion there. And actually is part of a doubleheader, which that much more cushion, I would say. So it's a close call. If you start a Quintana instead, I wouldn't blame you. I guess I think between the two, I'd still be more likely to start Gray, but it's a close call.
All right. Oh my goodness
gracious. John
gracious.
Gray specifically, not Obviously not Josiah.
Right.
Don't get it confused.
Do not start Josiah Gray, whatever
No.
you're doing. Like, even in NL only leagues, if you can get away from him, geez. I mean, there was a nice stretch in there throughout the season for Josiah Gray, and then just completely unraveled for him. Oh my goodness gracious, for me is another pitcher and another Orioles pitcher who dominated the Houston Astros. So it was back-to-back days. It was Kyle Bradish on Thursday night, and then Dean Kremer on Friday night, who put together a 4-hit shutout against the Houston Astros. He allowed 2 walks, 6 strikeouts in that one, 15 swinging strikes on just 106 pitches. So he was incredibly efficient again against one of the best lineups in baseball. Velocity was up a little bit across the board here. Cutter up 1.3 miles per hour. His curve was up 1.2 miles per hour. And over his last 7 starts, Dean Kremer has a 2.29 ERA, 1.12 whip, well below a strikeout per inning. So it seems like getting ground balls is helping him and limiting hard contact during that time. He's 33% rostered, and it looks like his final 2 matchups at the Red Sox, home against the Blue Jays. So very clearly behind Jose Quintana and John Gray for me, Scott. But what do you think about Dean Kremer, the way he's pitched really over the past month and a half, and in those final 2 matchups, Red Sox and Blue Jays?
Yeah, I mean, I'm skeptical of it. Obviously, he's gotten an assist, as has the whole Orioles pitching staff, from the new dimensions of Camden Yards and turning it into kind of a pitcher's paradise. So there may be more legitimacy to it than some of the usual metrics I look at would indicate. Those matchups, a bit shaky, kind of scary. Red Sox and Blue Jays, not the most awful matchups, but not great.
All right.
And
Where
so,
Go
well,
ahead.
I do want to say though, like I am finding in some of my deeper rotisserie leagues that specifically I'm seeing wins as a category I can make up ground in this final week of the season. So I'm selling out a little more for volume in those leagues where wins or strikeouts. If you feel pretty good about where your situation in ERA and WHIP, then maybe you do have to gamble a little more on somebody like Dean Kremer. So I'll just mention that.
I think it's a really good point to bring up about roto leagues too. I mean, you should have been doing this over the final month of the season, if you could have, but especially the final week, if you see categories where you can make up ground, whether it's strikeouts or saves or wins, whatever it might be, just tweak your pitcher lineup to kind of to align with the needs of your rotisserie team. So just make sure to look at those standings before you set your lineups here on Monday. Where does Dean Kremer rank up against this group of waiver wire pitchers? Saw Aaron Savali with another solid start here over the weekend. 5 innings, 2 runs allowed, 7 strikeouts, just 0 walks. And over his last 6 starts, Savali 3.48 ERA over a strikeout per inning, 48% ground ball rate, 10.6% swinging strike rate. He's been solid. The problem is he only has 1 start, but it's against the Royals. So it's obviously a very good matchup there.
With all the 2-star pitchers, I'm not going to do that. Savale does still have a 5.19 ERA on the year, for what it's worth. And that good stretch you cited, obviously there was an IL stint, like a month lost during it. So I don't know. He's a low ceiling pitcher to begin with, and I just think there are better options.
All right. Well, what about these other names? Braxton Garrett had a strong start against the Nationals. He went 6 innings of 1-run ball, 6 strikeouts, 0 walks in that one. And his final 2 matchups at the Brewers and home against the Braves. And then Cody Morris, Scott, who I know you did have as one of your sleeper pitchers. He was solid once again at the Rangers this weekend. 5 innings, 2 runs, one of those earned with 5 strikeouts. He now has a 2.18 ERA, 1.45 whip. It's kind of inflated because he had a 5 walk outing. So the walks are the walks per 9 are pretty high for Cody Morris so far. 13% rostered. He is up against the Rays and Royals. How would you rank Kremer, Braxton Garrett, Cody Morris?
I would rank them Cody Morris, Braxton Garrett, Dean Kremer.
All right. How excited are you about using Braxton Garrett? It's kind of matchups are kind of scary because the Brewers struggle against lefties, but I feel like they've been a little bit better offensively recently. And then obviously the Braves are really good against lefties. So what do you think about Garrett?
Yeah, it's kind of bipolar matchups there. but he's been really solid, even since he missed that stretch with an injury and then got demoted for a little bit because the rotation was full, and now is back because Trevor Rogers is out for the season. It's been really solid now, basically since, right before the All-Star break, right? And uh, if it's a situation where you're chasing wins, chasing strikeouts, I think he's capable of providing both. He goes deep enough to get wins. He's, a solid strikeout pitcher. The Braves on the whole have hit lefties well, but they're a lineup that strikes out a lot. I mean, Kyle Gibson got 25 swinging strikes against them. He didn't pitch particularly well, but Kyle Gibson just got 25 swinging strikes against them on Sunday. So it wouldn't be surprising if they knocked Braxton Garrett around, but it also wouldn't be surprising if he had like 7-8 strikeouts in that game. So I think he didn't quite make the cut for my 10 sleeper pitchers. So, I'm not saying everybody should rush out and pick up Braxton Garrett, but specifically those people who are looking to meet specific category needs. I could see how Braxton Garrett might be useful to them.
You know what he kind of reminds me of, Scott? Braxton Garrett reminds me of Kyle Wright this season, where Kyle Wright just kind of leaned into that curveball and he's been really good because of it. It's not, he doesn't really stand out anywhere, but he gets ground balls, he gets swinging strikes, right around a strikeout per inning, and he pitches on a good team. Now, Braxton Garrett does not pitch on a good team. We know that. But as you mentioned, he's just kind of solid across the board. Strikeout per inning, 47% ground ball rate, 12.5% swinging strike rate. Yep. I kind of like what we've seen from Braxton Garrett this year, and I think he's going to be an interesting name for next year as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the Marlins set up their rotation because they have a lot of pretty good arms there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so in 10 starts dating back to the start of July, and again, there was a month-long IL stint in there. Braxton Garrett has a 2.84 ERA, 0.95 WHIP, and just over a strikeout per inning with a 12% swinging strike rate, which is pretty good. And let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of those 10 starts, 6 innings or more. So not bad with the volume. Not great either, but good enough, I think, for these purposes.
Speaking of those Miami Marlins, I saw Don Mattingly will not be back to manage the 2023 season. I kind of felt like maybe it's run its course a little bit. So we'll see what the Marlins do in the offseason. Again, huge problem, offense. I think that's something they really need to focus on and hopefully find a way to keep Jazz Chisholm healthy.
He was there for a long time.
Yeah.
7 years.
Yeah. That's a long time, especially for a team that's mostly not been great.
Did they ever? Is he the longest tenured manager for the Marlins ever? That would be my guess. See if I can find that real quick.
Okay. I'm going to present 3 other waiver wire pitchers, Scott. These are more so for deeper leagues than anything else, but 3 names that have showed some upside here. They have some prospect pedigree, and they're looking pretty good. Luis Ortiz, pitching well for the Pirates. He just didn't go very deep into this start. He was up against the Marlins. He went 4 2/3. He allowed just 1 hit, 1 run, 7 strikeouts in that one. Dre Jameson, another solid outing here on Sunday. 5 1/3 shutout with 5 strikeouts against the Giants. And Brian Bayo, a strong start on Sunday Night Baseball against the Yankees before it was rained out. 6 innings, 2 runs, 1 earned with 4 strikeouts for Brian Bayo. His last 5 starts, a 1.65 ERA, 1.32 WHIP, lots of ground balls, lots of whiffs. Really like what I'm seeing from Brian Bayo. He's 29% roster, Jameson 13%, Luis Ortiz 6%. Scott, in deeper leagues, do you have any interest in adding any of these 3 names? Ortiz, Jameson, Bayo.
I mean, in an AL only league, I'm going to go ahead and start Brian Bayo because it's specifically a situation where I'm trying to get as many chances for a win as I can, but that's a really deep league. Having said that, I'm getting pretty excited about him as a potential breakout for next year based on the way he's finishing this season. I just think it's still a little too risky to advise using him in most leagues. Dre Jameson kind of in the same boat. Let's see. What would his matchups be? Well, I guess anybody who started Sunday wouldn't be in line for 2 starts next week. So that's so why? Well, Bayo didn't start Sunday, right? He started Saturday.
No, he did start on Sunday, but I think the Red Sox have 10 games left.
Yeah.
It's
okay. So anybody with 10 games, I get.
Yeah.
There are a few teams with 10 games, and so if they had somebody go Sunday, they might still be in line for 2 starts next week.
Yeah. It looks like the matchups are Blue Jays and at the Rays.
Yeah. Dre Jameson has just the 1 start, so even more reason not to use him. It would be against the Giants.
Correct.
Okay.
And then Luis Ortiz, he's looked good, but he's not giving you much volume, and he only has 1 start at the Cardinals, so probably going to stay away from that one as well. Let's talk about some waiver wire hitters, Scotty. I have a bunch of names here who could be available for the final stretch, and we're just going to, rank all of them. So let's start with some corner infielders. Patrick Wisdom had a sock and a shoe on Sunday, his 25th home run, his 8th steal, and he now has 3 home runs over his last 5 games, 70% rostered with 9 games left. Eduardo Escobar, 1 for 5 with a grand slam on Friday. He picked up 3 more hits on Sunday, 72% rostered with 8 games left. Vinny Pasquantino, 6 hits, including a homer this weekend in 14 games since returning from the IL. He's hitting .354, 1 homer, 5 doubles, 969 OPS, and he's 68% rostered. Also saw that he got engaged this weekend. So
yeah, saw that too. Vinny P, baby.
Yeah, getting it done. And then Joey 2 hits. That's Joey Meneses. He had 3 more homers over his last 4 games and just continuing to crush it. He's batting .326. He's got 12 homers, 943 OPS in 46 games played. Scott, how would you rank these 4? Joey Meneses, Vinny P, Eduardo Escobar, and Patrick Wisdom.
I mean, Joey Meneses is basically Babe Ruth at this point. So I don't know. He's not slowing down even when the matchups are pretty tough. He's now batting .326 with 943 OPS, and the Nationals are one of those teams with 10 games in the final scoring period. So I think you got to go Joey Meneses number 1. Do like Vinny Pasquantino for this upcoming week also, so he's number 2. And then Wisdom and Escobar, they of course are eligible at third base, which makes which is of course a position of greater need. I don't have either among my sleeper hitters for this week. I think I would give, Escobar's just been so hot. He does have the lesser matchups of the 2, but I'll go Escobar over Wisdom still for that final spot.
Want to talk about an embarrassment of riches, Scott? I have Joey Meneses on my bench in the podcast listeners league in the championship. And in the lineup, I have Michael Harris, Steven Kwan, Hunter Renfroe, who had a massive weekend, and Yordan Alvarez in my utility. So I just can't really find a way to get Joey Meneses in my lineup. So
yeah, that's what happens in those head-to-head lineup leagues, the nine-man hitter rosters, 3 outfielders, only 1 first base spot, no extra corner infield spot. So yeah, that happens sometimes.
Yep, it's true. Got some outfielders here for you, Scotty. Oscar Gonzalez had a double dong on Saturday. Surprised me that he was just 64% roster. Like it's been climbing. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of leagues that are either over or people aren't paying attention, whatever it might be. But I know the Guardians have the 4th best hitter matchups, according to your sleeper hitter article. Taylor Ward had a double dong on Friday, and he's having a big September. He's batting .325, 4 homers, 925 OPS in the month. AJ Pollock also having a nice September. He's hitting .291, 5 homers, and 838 OPS. And Seth Brown had a big weekend. He had 5 hits, including 2 home runs. Also a massive September, .297, 8 homers, 1064 OPS for Seth Brown. Scott, how do you rank those 4? Oscar Gonzalez, Taylor Ward, AJ Pollock, and Seth Brown.
So Gonzalez and Ward are both among my sleeper hitters for this week. I do think I give the slight edge to Gonzalez, but pretty encouraged by the way Taylor Ward's September is going. I kind of thought he'd just be a flash in the pan. The first 6 weeks or so of this season, he looked like the best player in baseball. I wonder if it's a situation where, you can date his drop off back to an injury he suffered that didn't seem like a major thing, didn't keep him out for a long time, but he just was never the same after that.
I think it was a shoulder.
Yeah, his shoulder in mid-May or mid-late May kept him out for 4 or 5 games. But he was just totally unproductive after that until September. In September, he's starting to look like the guy we saw at the beginning of the season. So I think that's going to put him on the radar again next year, at least in 5 outfielder leagues, provided the Angels still want him as an everyday player. So he'll be second. Oscar Gonzalez and Taylor Ward, both on my sleeper hitters for this week. Between the other two, Seth Brown and AJ Pollock.
They each have 9 games remaining.
Yeah, but let me double check this. I think the Athletics are facing 5 lefties in those 9 games.
Oh, geez.
Otherwise, I'd be inclined to say Seth Brown over Pollock, but let me double check. Oh, it doesn't look so bad anymore. Now it just looks like 2. That changed a lot from when I put this together on Thursday. Okay, so let's say Seth Brown over AJ Pollock.
All right. I do have 2 catchers here. Obviously, for shallower 1 catcher leagues, William Contreras, he's back. He's playing once again. He went 3 for 4 with his 20th home run on Saturday. He has started 11 straight games. I know Ronald Acuna has been out of the lineup for them. And during those 11 games, he's hitting .325 with 3 home runs. So, again, 10-team, 12-team, 1 catcher leagues. Just check to see if William Contreras is out there if you need a catcher. And then Cal Raleigh is someone I'm interested in as well. He had 2 more homers this weekend, which brings him to 25. He's second to only Dalton Varsho at the position in terms of where they rank with home runs. And Cal Raleigh is 52% rostered, and the Mariners have the best hitter matchups the rest of the way. So,
yep,
someone I am quite interested in. I would clearly take Contreras over Cal Raleigh. Some deeper outfielders, Scotty. Will Brennan looks pretty good so far. He went 1 for 3 with a double and 2 steals on Friday. He's 2% rostered. Somebody named Connor Capel or Capel. Not a good job by me. I meant to look up how to say his name, but a lot going on here.
I don't blame you. I'm trying to figure out who this guy is too.
I don't know anything about him, but he had a pretty big weekend for the Oakland A's. He had 5 hits. Capel?
Yeah, Connor Capel.
Capel. All right. He had 5 hits, 2 homers, 7 RBI this weekend. Minor league numbers were pretty pedestrian. I didn't really see anything too interesting with him. And then Brian De La Cruz, I brought him up recently. He's just red hot. His last 7 games, he's hitting .481, 2 homers, impacts the ball pretty hard. He is 6% rostered. Scott, obviously very deep leagues. You know, we're probably looking at like 15-team roto, 5 outfielders. Any interest in these names? Brennan, Capel, and De La Cruz.
Capel. Yeah, I think that's right. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, Connor Capel. Okay. I would say Will Brennan's the most interesting. He has kind of that Stephen Kwan profile, as we talked about last week. But the Guardians legitimately do have 5 left-handers on the schedule. And Brennan is a left-handed hitter. So I'm going to guess he doesn't play so often against them. So that might be tough to do. So I guess the best choice among these 3, and it is just for deeper leagues. Capel. Capel himself is a left-handed batter. I don't know. Maybe Brian De La Cruz, but I don't say that with a lot of gusto.
It is indeed Connor Capel. I just listened to one of the calls for his home runs from the weekend. So good call on you there, Scotty. Do have some deeper middle infielders as well. Ezekiel Tovar, one of the top prospects in the game. He plays for the Rockies. Made his debut on Friday. He went 2 for 4. Didn't do much else this weekend, but he has started 3 straight games. He's 16% rostered. The rest of his 9 remaining games are all on the road. So unfortunately, will not get any Coors Field. Oswaldo Cabrera has 4 home runs over his last 12 games, has been playing much better for the Yankees. 16% rostered for him. He's got 10 games remaining, second base and outfield eligibility. And then CJ Abrams had 6 hits this weekend, including 2 steals on Sunday, which is what we need to see, Scott. As you know, we've said it all season. We got to see this guy run, and you know, maybe he's starting to do it here down the stretch. He is 34% rostered. How do you rank those 3? Again, deeper leagues: Tovar, Cabrera, Abrams.
I guess I will go Tovar number 1. I will say that Oswaldo Cabrera has the best matchups. And what's rough for the Rockies is not only are they on the road, they have the worst hitter matchups of any team this week.
Damn.
So the fact that I'm saying Ezequiel Tovar number 1, I think just goes to show you how I feel about Oswaldo Cabrera and CJ Abrams. Because I don't really want to start Tovar either.
Yeah. Cabrera's look pretty good. He puts the ball in the air a lot. Obviously, short porch in right field in Yankee Stadium. Looks like the game is slowing down a little bit for him. So I don't know that he's ever going to be an impact player, but he's looked good over the past couple of weeks. I do have two.
Most, for what it's worth, the Yankees have 10 games this week, and 7 of them are on the road in Toronto and in Texas.
Okay. Well, Toronto's still a pretty good place to hit. Texas is kind of neutral. So,
yeah.
All right. Could have been better with more games in Yankee Stadium. Do have 2 corner infielders here, Scott. Again, these are for deeper leagues. Juan Yepez has had 5 hits this weekend, getting back into some playing time here for the Cardinals. Hit his 12th home run on Friday, has started 4 of their last 5 games. He's 19% rostered with 8 games left. And then Tristan Casas has 2 home runs over his last 4 games. He likes hitting against the Yankees, I'll tell you that much so far. 34% rostered and 10 games left for him. Again, we're talking deep leagues here, Scott, but any interest in Yepez or Casas?
I don't have a ton of interest in starting either of them, no. But I do like seeing the big weekend from Casas. And what may have been most impressive to me is that, all the walks versus the lack of strikeouts, so he did hit the 2 home runs in his past 4 games, but he also had 6 walks versus 3 strikeouts during that stretch. And I think that's going to be a big part of his game moving forward.
Yeah, I like the plate discipline so far. His batted ball distribution is just all over the place in his first 18 games played. He has a 59% ground ball rate, which again, I mean, for a lefty, you hit it into the shift. It's, those are basically automatic outs. His average exit velocity is 85.3 miles per hour. So it's, it's been pretty bad, but he is a rookie, and this is what we normally see out of rookies. So can't go too hard on Tristan Casas there. All right, that is those are all the names I have, quite a bit. But I wanted to remind everyone before we hit the break, the schedule for this week. Obviously, we're live here on Sunday night and podcasting your feed on Monday. We will also be live on YouTube on Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and Thursday night. Audio podcast in your feed Wednesday morning, Thursday morning, Friday morning. So Monday night, we will not be around. You will not have a podcast on Tuesday morning. Let's take a break, and we'll hit the news and notes here on Fantasy Baseball Today. The news and notes. First, we will start with the good news for Tampa Bay, which is Tyler Glasnow, scheduled to start Wednesday in Cleveland, but will be limited to about 45 pitches. And I believe he would line up for one more start after that, Scott, at the Red Sox. And I know someone in the YouTube chat was asking us about Tyler Glasnow. Obviously, he's a big name, big talent, someone we'll like for next year, but I can't imagine we're looking to add him if he's going to be that limited.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if he doesn't have a chance to get you a win, not a serious chance anyway, I don't think I'd be looking to use him.
All right. The bad news for Tampa Bay. Shane Baz will undergo Tommy John surgery and will not pitch during the entire 2023 season. Scott, let's say that you are a rebuilding team in a dynasty league. You're pretty far out. Would you maybe look to acquire Shane Baz? Because I think you'll be able to get him at a discounted price.
Yeah, I think that's always a good idea. Tommy John surgery has a good track record. Obviously, pitcher of that talent level. I like to accumulate as many of those guys as I can because they tend to get hurt so often. So I know in one of my dynasty leagues when Justin Verlander succumbed to Tommy John surgery, I was able to get him for very cheap. And this year I did the same thing with Walker Buehler in one of them. Basically, in both of those cases, if I'm being honest, it was less about me being proactive and coming to the guy with him and saying, "Hey, do you want to trade him?" I feel like those out of the blue, like cold calls, rarely amount to anything for me. It was more them being like, "Hey, I'm interested in shopping this guy," and me just jumping in right away and saying, "All right, what do you want?" and being able to work something out. So I think it's usually worth doing. Obviously, it depends how many keepers you're allowed to keep, what the cost is to keep the particular player, of course. But in a lot of circumstances, it makes sense.
Some big names went to the IL this weekend. Spencer Strider with a left oblique strain, Julio Rodriguez with a lower back strain, Luis Robert with a left wrist sprain, something that's really hampered him for the past month or so. He will not play again in 2022. Pretty disappointing season. I will personally apologize because I was all over Luis Robert and I thought it was going to be a big year, but just kind of weird season overall for the White Sox. I don't really know where they go from here or what's going to happen with Tony La Russa, but just a very, very weird season for the Chicago White Sox. Dustin May went to the IL with lower back tightness as well. So a few big outfielders, a few pitchers on here. Obviously, if you need replacements, you can refer to the Jose Quintanas of the world and John Gray and Cody Morris, or if you need an outfielder, Joey Meneses, Oscar Gonzalez, names like that. What else do we have? Craig Kimbrell was removed from the closer role on Friday. So we now have the Dodgers and the Yankees who say that they're basically going closer by committee. And it seems like the names that could be involved here, Scott, Chris Martin, Evan Phillips, Brusdar Graterol, and I don't know, maybe even Kimbrell kind of works back in. Is there anyone that you're looking at? I mean, I think these would probably have to be deep league plays this late in the season, but how do you feel about the Dodgers bullpen?
Yeah, you have to wonder how many save chances they're going to get with 9 games on the schedule, obviously, and if they're dividing it between a few different guys. It's a low probability play on your part, singling out any one of them. I'd be most likely to pick up Evan Phillips, I think, just because he's been the best. But Chris Martin did get a save over the weekend. Brusdar Graterol, he's recently off the IL, but he had kind of been serving as the backup closer earlier, so it wouldn't surprise me if he got the majority of the saves, whatever that ends up being, 2, So I would say I would rank them Phillips, Graterol, and then Chris Martin. And, just keep your expectations in check because it's very likely whoever you pick up, it's going to amount to 0 saves,
Byron Buxton will undergo season-ending arthroscopic knee surgery on Tuesday. Luis Castillo signed a 5-year, $108 million contract extension with the Mariners this weekend, and he has a 3.35 ERA in 10 starts with them. Oddly enough, he's been roughed up by the Royals and the A's in his last 2 outings, so not great timing, unfortunately, here, Luis Castillo. DJ LeMahieu remains unable to play because of his toe injury, and it's unclear when or if he'll be able to return this season. Nick Castellanos will not need a rehab assignment and is expected to return sometime between Tuesday and Thursday. I'm assuming that means we want to stay away, right, Scott? How do you feel about Castellanos?
I would rather not have to use him. I mean, it's not like he was having a great season anyway.
Yeah.
That's it.
Fair enough. Jorge Polanco is still feeling issues with his left knee and may not return this season as well. Drew Smyly will not start this upcoming series against the Phillies. He's dealing with left shoulder fatigue. Chris Bryant confirmed on Saturday that he will not return the season, and he played just 42 games in his first year with the Rockies. Brandon Lau has been ruled out for the remainder of the season as well with back inflammation. Jesse Winker was removed Sunday with a bruised left wrist. It's been a pretty bad season for Winker regardless. You probably do not want to play him. Edward Cabrera left Sunday start with a low-grade ankle sprain, and he looks like he would only have 1 start left anyway. So I think we can comfortably drop Edward Cabrera, Scott.
Oh, I don't trust him anyway.
Yeah. I feel bad too because he was one of my guys. Like I was pretty excited, and I still think that there is a lot to be excited about moving forward. But
yeah,
he's got to clean up walks, man. Like the walks have just been a huge issue for him.
Yep.
Tyler Mahle is officially out for the rest of the season with that shoulder injury. Mackenzie Gore will make another rehab start at AAA on Monday. He got up to 65 pitches in his previous outing, but it sounds like he will not have value in redraft leagues the rest of this season. Dane Dunning will undergo season-ending arthroscopic surgery on his hip. Madison Bumgarner will not pitch again for the D-backs this season. We did have a few prospect notes. Pirates second base / outfield prospect Ji Hwan Bae was promoted on Friday, and he picked up 2 hits and 2 steals this weekend. And he does have some speed, 30 steals in the minors this season. This would have to be, obviously, he's got a very deep league play. Do you have any interest in it? Ji Hwan Bae?
No, not at this juncture. Kind of a light hitter, even if he can steal some bases. And, who knows? Who knows how things are going to go with the Pirates, especially.
Mm-hmm. And this one's going to get you hyped, Scotty. Cubs first base prospect Matt Mervis will have a chance to win a roster spot in spring training next year. And he had just a sick season in the minors where he hit 309, 35 homers with a 986 OPS. So just file that name away. Late round sleeper for next year, breakout candidate, whatever you want to call him. Matt Mervis, a first base prospect with the Cubs.
I do like him. Not only was he productive across 3 levels, I think he and one other Cubs prospect, Kevin Alcantara, I think, they were the first Cubs prospects since Chris Bryant to hit 30 homers in a minor league season. And what's most impressive about Matt Mervis to me is not only was he productive, but once he got to AAA, which is where he spent the majority of his season, or he spent more time at AAA than any other level, I should say. Strikeout rate was 14.2%. He's not a guy who strikes out like you would expect someone with his power to. So kind of reminiscent of Anthony Rizzo that way. And internally, some of the Cubs organization have made that comparison.
I believe it was Alexander Canario, Scott, the other 30 home run hitter in the Cubs organization.
Yeah. Yep, I get him and Kevin Alcantara confused. So, yeah, that makes sense.
But Alcantara is actually the higher ranked prospect for the Cubs. It's just, Canario more of the power guy for them. Starters sit these banged up players, Scotty. Ronald Acuna just feels like there's always something going on this season for him, unfortunately. He has missed 4 straight with mid-back tightness. Do you start or sit this week?
I mean, it's a 10-day scoring period, obviously. I mean, it may not be in your specific scenario, and so that makes it easier, I think, to roll the dice on him if you get another chance to then remove him from your lineup later on. But if you don't, I mean, certainly I wouldn't do it in 3 outfielder leagues. In 5 outfielder leagues, I think you just have to gauge how much damage it could cause you if he takes a goose egg all week, which is possible. Not likely, but it's possible.
All right. Wander Franco was removed Sunday with an apparent left hand injury. And I know what you're thinking, but it was previously his right hand that Wander Franco had issues with. So how do you feel about Wander Franco, Scott? Have you seen anything else on him?
I think I'd be fine sitting him. I haven't seen anything, but it doesn't feel like you're losing much by keeping him out of your lineup. He's just been kind of blah.
Yeah. He's an interesting one to figure out too. Don't ever want to write off one of the top prospects in the game or anything like that. And that's not what I'm doing, but I just wonder if he has enough pure power in this environment. Like, is he going to be able to live up to being a 25, 30 home run hitter? I don't know. I really don't know. Obviously a kind of a lost season here for Wander Franco, but it's going to be an interesting one to discuss in the offseason. Tony Gonsolin will return to the majors after just 1 rehab start on Tuesday at AAA. And it seems like he would return for just 1 start next Sunday against the Rockies, Scott. So home against the Rockies, it's a good matchup. How do you feel about Tony Gonsolin for this long period?
Yeah, I don't trust it. It's mostly about getting him ready for the postseason, and I don't know how long they're going to stick with him. It's a good matchup, but with all the 2-start options out there, I probably wouldn't use Tony Gonsolin unless, I could see maybe in like a daily lineup scenario, you'd rather have him in than not in, but like if you're limited in how many pitchers you can start over the course of the entire week, probably going to sit Gonsolin.
Scott, I was on the Fantasy Football Today live stream earlier on Sunday morning. Adam said that Adam Azer, by the way, said he likes the actual Oreo cookie part more than the cream.
I agree with him.
That's a take. That's an Azer take. And I guess now it's a Scott White take too.
Yeah. I find that I agree with, and maybe I shouldn't admit this.
Don't do it.
I agree with more Azer takes than not.
Oh, boom goes the dynamite.
Some of them are really bad, but yeah, of course the cookie part of the Oreo cookie's better than the cream. I mean,
come on, Scott.
If you
can't say it like it's a definitive statement.
Of course it is. If you could eat just either one independent from the other, which would you choose? The cream makes no sense. It's just sugar mash. It's
what's wrong with that? Don't you like Peeps? How is it different?
Oh, that's marshmallows with it's different.
Kind of the same thing.
And by the way, I like the cookie part of an Oreo better than I like Peeps, I would say. Like there's more, what's the word? My brain's kind of foggy tonight. Like there's more complexity to the cookie part of the Oreo cookie than there is to the cream.
Okay. I will have you know, Scott, that since our spirited discussion about dipping cookies in milk, dipping Oreos specifically in milk, I have just gone on a binge recently of doing that. Especially after I finish this podcast, it's like a midnight snack. I just go and just like dunk a bunch of Oreos, and
you think of me every time, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I'll tweet out a picture when I do
show that guy. I'll show that guy people can do this.
Yeah, I'm gonna send out a picture of just the cream filling right after this. So we'll do that. Starter sit these pitchers who, frankly, were not great over the weekend. And Carlos Rodon, I know it might be ridiculous that I'm even asking this, but he was not effective. It was at Coors Field. And the velocity was down quite a bit once again. So he allowed 4 runs over 4 1/3. Fastball velo down 1.7 miles per hour. The curve down 1.8. Final 2 starts, home against the Rockies, home against the Diamondbacks. Are you starting Carlos Rodon?
Yeah.
All right. Jordan Montgomery has been getting roughed up recently. His last 3 starts, he has an 8.16 ERA, 1.74 whip. I mean, what a great trade by the Yankees. Harrison Bader playing great defense for the Bronx Bombers. But seriously, Scott, Jordan Montgomery's kind of getting banged up recently, and he only has 1 start, but it's against the Pirates. So what do you do with Jordan Montgomery?
I probably wouldn't start him. I mean, again, it kind of is your daily lineups, is it weekly lineups? Weekly lineups, I think I definitely wouldn't start him because you could find guys with multiple matchups. Daily, maybe size it up on the day, see how much you need wins and strikeouts versus ERA and whip. But he might help an ERA and whip too against the Pirates.
Yeah. The trend continues for one Charlie Morton. Terrible on the road once again. He was at the Phillies where he gave up 6 earned runs over 4 2/3 innings pitched. That brings his road ERA to 5.72 with a 1.39 whip. The good news is this week he is at home, but it's against the Mets, a team he has struggled against this season, Scott, and there's only 1 start left. So how you feeling about Uncle Chuck?
You're out of there.
Get him out of here. Shane O'Mac clearly is not right now, unfortunately, when we need him most. He gave up 4 runs over 5 innings pitched, 3 being home runs, and he has now given up 9 earned runs over his last 2 outings. He only has 1 start left at the Houston Astros, so don't feel great about that.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I mean,
I will say
if you're in the championship game, right? If you have a shot at the championship game, and if why are you listening if you don't? Shane McClanahan's the main reason why you have that shot, right?
Yeah.
Are you really not going to play him?
So I have him in the podcast points league.
Uh-huh.
He has 1 start against the Astros. I have Chris Bassett on my bench against the Nationals and the Braves. I have Jose Quintana for those great matchups. I have Stroman against the Phillies and the Reds. I have Michael Wacha against the Orioles and the Blue Jays. I'm probably going to start Bassett or Jose Quintana over Shane McClanahan.
Yep.
And this is a head-to-head points league. So
that makes sense. I don't think I'd start Wacha and who was the other one?
Marcus Stroman.
Oh, yeah, I definitely wouldn't start Stroman over. I definitely want to start the 2-start Stroman over the 1-start McClanahan.
Mm.
Waka, I guess, is a closer call, but even then, I think I lean 1-start McClanahan.
I just realized I have Zach Wheeler on the IL too, so
Ooh.
I need to activate him and get him in my lineup.
Yeah, because he's making 2 starts, and I think one is against the
Cubs and Nationals.
Oh,
Cubs
yeah.
Nationals, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so this is looking pretty good so far. One of our listener leagues going up against Jamie Campbell, who had a great season, great record in the regular season. I'm up 68 points, Scott, with the 10-day period to go. So I feel okay, but 60
That's
points,
another...
they can go away in a week. So
that's another reason why I feel like a loser today. I keep feeling like a loser, Frank, because I am in 2 championship games, head-to-head points championship games, and halfway through them, they're 2 periods long. I'm losing both. I'm losing both badly.
Oh,
and
dang.
in one of those leagues, I was on I began 2-6, and then I reeled off 14 straight wins to close out the season.
Damn.
So I thought I was going to cruise in that one, but apparently not. And so if I fail to come back in these 2 head-to-head points matchups, that just leaves one AL only Roto league where I'm nursing a 1-point lead. That might be my only championship this year I'm in 10 redraft leagues, and I might win 1 or 0 or 3, but it's not looking good for 2 of them.
All right. Well,
and that would suck. I wouldn't like that very much. And here's the frustrating part. I think I'll finish 2nd or 3rd. If let's say I win none of them, that means I finish 2nd or 3rd in 8 of the 10.
wow.
Yeah. Don't like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a few different things could have went your way throughout the course of the season. And, you're within striking distance of winning those leagues potentially. So yeah, we can't have you go for the clean sweep, Scotty. So hold on to that AL only.
Win them all. I want to be the very best. Like no one ever was.
I don't know if you know this, Scott, but I am a big Pokemon fan.
I know.
I don't mean to rub it in or anything or pour salt on the wound, as they would say. But I do have a 70-point lead over Greg Jewett and Tout Wars too.
You win Tout Wars in back-to-back years.
Back-to-back?
Just podcast by yourself from now on.
No, come on. But we'll see, man. Greg Jewett has a really good team, so trying to hold on to that one as well. Let's get into some leftovers from the weekend. Brian Reynolds hit 2 more homers and is now up to 26. I think maybe it's been a letdown of a year for Brian Reynolds because you probably specifically drafted him for batting average, and he's hitting 260, but the power has been a pretty good surprise. 26 homers for Brian Reynolds. I'd like to see that.
He was one of the players you had me grade the season, right?
Did I?
And that was before this recent power binge.
I don't know if I did. I don't know if Brian Reynolds was part of it.
I think I gave him a C+.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of the higher grades because he's lived up to his draft pick, I would say. But
I think
he hasn't lived up to last year because of the batting average has been a little behind. But yeah, so in September, Brian Reynolds is batting .315 with 5 homers and a .907 OPS. And
that's awesome.
I think I can't remember. I feel like his whole second half's been good. Let me check that. Not as good as I was remembering. It's really August and September combined. You look at Brian Reynolds' stats, and they're really good.
Yeah. You're right, though, Scott. He basically has lived up to expectations. He's the 22nd ranked outfielder in Roto. He's the 87th overall player. Maybe he was drafted a little bit higher than that, but that sounds about right. Adley Rutschman had a huge game on Friday. He went 3 for 3 with a sock and a shoe, 12 homers, 4 steals on the season. Scott, what have you thought of Adley Rutschman's rookie year?
Thought it's been pretty solid. I think it has him in contention. He's one of the we talk about the depth at catcher. that we're going to be looking at next year, where there's 7, 8 potential stud bats at the position, 7 or 8 guys who could potentially finish number 1 at the position, and Rushman will be among that group. The plate discipline in particular has been impressive for him, and that's always a good sign for a guy just breaking into the league. I think the power continues to get better, and I mean, there's a good chance in a couple of years we'll think of him as the no questions asked best catcher in fantasy.
Mm-hmm. He is somebody I absolutely want to draft in one catcher head-to-head points leagues next year, because I just think he's so clearly going to be amazing in that format. You mentioned the plate discipline. He has 32 doubles on the season in 104 games played. So I think he's going to DH quite a bit. So you'll get plate appearance volume. I think some of those doubles could turn into home runs. Like if he hits 18 to 20 homers with 40 doubles and great plate discipline, he absolutely is in the running for being the best catcher in a points league. So just think he's really, really going to excel in that format. Randy Arozarena had 5 more hits this weekend, including his 20th home run. He also has over 30 steals. It's been just a furious finish for Randy Arozarena. Michael Harris picked up another home run and another steal. He's now up to 19 and 19 through 106 games. Scott, how much does this worry you about Michael Harris? He's been bad against lefties. Actually, I don't want to say, should I say bad? He's batting .252. So like that's adequate, but his OPS is quite bad. It's .675 against left-handed pitching. That's not good. And I think like 2 of his 19 home runs. So how much does that worry you when you're probably going to have to use a 3rd or 4th round pick on Michael Harris next season?
Yeah, I probably would not use a 3rd or 4th round pick on Michael Harris next season, to be honest. And you're probably right with the fact he's at 19-19 right now, home runs and stolen bases. So if he gets to 2020 after not debuting until till late May, so basically playing 2/3 of a season and goes 2020, yeah, I mean that's batting 300. Yeah, he's probably going to go that high in 5x5 leagues. Will he go that high in points leagues? Well, there's more of an emphasis on pitching and he doesn't walk a lot. So maybe not. Maybe he'll slide a little in that format and I'll be more likely to draft Michael Harris there, actually. But there are a lot of worrisome aspects to Harris. Ground ball rate is very high. As I mentioned, the walk rate is very low. And now you're bringing up his performance against same-handed pitchers. Like that's probably the least of those 3 worries for me, but it's another worry. The minor league track record is strong. Didn't hit for much power down there, but that he's hitting for power. That's not a question. He was a great hitter in the minors in terms of average. And I think my concerns are mostly tied to that. Can he continue to do what he's done this year? Well, minor league track record says he can. But those red flags for a 22-year-old, I think I'm going to go another direction in the early rounds, most likely.
All right. Bryce Harper is scuffling here to the finish line. He's hitting just .204 with 3 homers and a .676 OPS in 26 games since returning from the IL. I don't know if he's completely healthy, and we have to find out whether or not he's going to need Tommy John in the offseason or maybe some kind of elbow surgery. So that's a big storyline for sure with Bryce Harper. Whit Merrifield has started 5 straight games, and he has 6 hits, including 3 homers during that time. He is still 83% rostered and 59% started, Scott. The Blue Jays have the 5th best hitter matchups. If you held on to Whit Merrifield, is this a time to get back in your lineup?
Yeah, I mean, he's turning it on all of a sudden after not even getting consistent playing time early. The Blue Jays have good matchups this upcoming week. So it's not the craziest thing. Do they shelve him again all of a sudden?
No, I think Santiago Espinal's in the IL now, so that's why Merrifield's playing more again.
Yeah. They do have Kevin Biggio, right, who they try and mix in from time to time.
It's true.
So, I don't know. Like, he's not one of my 10 sleeper hitters for this week, Merrifield. But it's a span of 10 days, so anything could happen.
Eloy Jimenez is having himself a big second half, batting .345, 13 homers, a 1,000 OPS on the nose. That is in 58 games, which is a 38 homer pace over 150. It's just, can he stay healthy? That's the biggest key for Eloy Jimenez. Big weekend for Hunter Renfroe. He had 6 hits, including 3 homers, and that included a double dong on Saturday. Kyle Schwarber, double dong on Sunday. He's now up to 42 home runs. George Springer, double dong also on Sunday. He's now up to 23. Mike Trout hit his 37th homer. Stephen Kwan just had an absolute monster game on Sunday. He went 3 for 5 with a grand slam and 2 steals. He's now up to 6 home runs and 19 steals on the season. And Pete Alonso went 4 for 5, hit his 39th homer, and he's up to 128 RBI. That's tied for the league lead with Aaron Judge. A few pitching standouts. Part 1. Aaron Nola. He went 6 shutout with 8 strikeouts. We had Brady Singer, 7 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts as well. Chris Bassett dominated in his return to Oakland. He went 8 innings, 2 runs, only 2 strikeouts. And Kyle Wright became the first and only 20-game winner this season. And I don't even think anyone else has a chance. I think next closest is 17. So Kyle Wright will likely be your only 20-game winner this year. It's been a great season for him. At the Phillies, 5 1/3, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts there. Anything on these 4, Scott? Wright, Bassett, Singer, Nola.
And 20-game winners you don't see many of them anymore. There was one last year, Julio Urias. Obviously, there wasn't any in 2020. Who would have guessed Kyle Wright coming into the season? Like he went unrostered in the Scott White Dynasty League, a 24-team league that emphasizes starting pitching. You know, like everybody with a rotation spot is so highly valued in that format, just because it's hard to find enough guys to go around in a 24-team league. And Kyle Wright, I picked him up off the waiver wire at the start of the season, and he's the major's only 20-game winner. It's crazy.
I think you should just give him to me, Scott, because my team stinks and I deserve him.
Not gonna do it. Sorry.
Pitching standouts part 2. Alek Manoah, another great start at the Rays. He went 7 shutout with 8 strikeouts. Drew Rasmussen, 6 1/3, 1 run allowed, 5 strikeouts up against the Blue Jays. Sandy Alcantara posted his 6th double-digit strikeout effort of the season up against the Nationals. He went 8 innings, 1 run, 11 strikeouts in that one, all but locking up the National League Cy Young, I would say. And Corbin Burns got back on track. Quality start at the Reds. 6 1/3, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts for him. Burns, Sandy, Rasmussen, Manoah. Anything on these?
And not a lot of interesting things to say. Yeah, I mean, obviously Sandy Alcantara and Corbin Burns, there had been some shakiness there recently. Alcantara kind of got back on track in his previous start, complete game effort. But I think this is a reminder that even at this stage of the season where we're like running out of calendar and everything, every start matters all the more. Like, this is kind of why I made a case to start Shane McClanahan, even though his previous 2 starts were bad. Like, sometimes good pitchers have bad starts and then they come back and look like great pitchers again, as we saw over the weekend with Alcantara and Burns.
Mm-hmm. Sandy, by the way, 9th in Major League Baseball in strikeouts, despite being 26th in K per 9. And that is due to his volume, how deep he goes into his starts. So,
well, and when you say 26 in K per 9, that's like of 50 total qualifiers, right? So he's there aren't many pitchers who actually qualify. I would say if you were ranking every starting pitcher who, through 120 innings this year, Sandy Alcantara would be pretty far down the list in K per 9, and still has all those strikeouts.
Yep. Pitching standouts part 3. Darvish, another quality start in Coors Field. He went 6 innings, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts in that one. Merrill Kelly, strong start up against the Giants. 7 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts for him. Clayton Kershaw up against the Cardinals. 6 innings, 2 runs, 7 strikeouts. And Christian Javier, dominant once again at the Orioles. 6 shutout, 1 hit allowed, 8 strikeouts for him. Javier, Kershaw, Merrill Kelly, Yu Darvish. What you got?
Not much for them either. They keep doing their thing. Combined, here's an interesting stat for Christian Javier. In his past 3 starts, thrown 17 innings, has allowed a combined 4 hits.
That is a good stat. I wish I had one for you.
Soldier Boy.
Pitching standouts, part 4. Nick Lodolo puts up a strong start up against the Brewers. 6 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts in that one. Dylan Cease up against the Tigers. 6 shutout with 5 strikeouts. Max Scherzer looked like Max Scherzer at Oakland. 6 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts. And Nestor Cortez, another great start. He went 6 shutout. He allowed just 1 hit, 5 strikeouts. And I saw this stat per Katie Sharp on Twitter. Nestor Cortez has 4 games with 5+ innings pitched and 1 hit or fewer allowed this season. That is the most by any pitcher in a single season in Yankees history. So just pretty interesting stat there for Nestor Cortez. Anything on these, Scott? Cortez, Scherzer, Cease, Lodolo.
Just a reminder for Lodolo, he's going against the Cubs in his final start this upcoming week. It's only 1, but he's a 1-star pitcher I might actually consider if you're setting your lineup weekly, just because he's, apart from that hiccup against the Red Sox 2 turns ago, Lodolo has been pretty consistently dominant here over the past few months.
The call to the bullpen, just a few names that could be available if you need saves. For the Marlins, Dylan Floro picked up 2 saves this weekend. He's 17% rostered. For the Yankees on Friday, Scott Efros gave up a hit, but did pick up his 3rd save. The Yankees are going by committee, so I probably would stay away from all of them, but Scott Efros in deeper leagues. For the Mariners, Paul Sewald pitched in the 7th and 8th innings on Saturday. Andres Munoz did pitch the 9th and picked up his 4th save. Munoz numbers, Scott, are nasty. There's just so much upside if he would be the closer for like years to come. I just don't think the Mariners are necessarily going to do that, so that kind of stinks.
Yeah, he was billed as a closer in waiting. Munoz was when he was with the Padres still. And, even though Sewald set up for him in this outing on Saturday, Sewald had gotten each of the Mariners' previous 3 saves. So I don't know that it necessarily signals the changing of the guard now. As you were saying, the Mariners, they don't really commit to anyone, but I think the main guy is still Sewald.
For the D-backs on Saturday, Reyes Moronta struck out 2 for his 2nd save. Ian Kennedy hadn't pitched since Wednesday, so he should have been available. I don't know if you want the Diamondbacks closer anyway, Scott, but do you think Reyes Moronta is now the guy?
I mean, maybe. I don't think that's going to amount to much, though.
Agreed. For the Cubs on Sunday, Brandon Hughes recorded the final out for his 7th save. He's only 15% rostered. And for the Reds, Alexis Diaz struck out the side for his 9th save, and he is only 38% rostered if you do need saves. To stream or not to stream for Monday with only 4 games on the schedule. Chase Anderson at the Pirates, Roansy Contreras versus the Reds, Jordan Lyles at the Red Sox, Connor Siebold versus the Orioles.
How'd you come up with 4 names with only 4 games on the schedule? Oh, you know what? I got one you missed. You ready? Here's the best streamer for Monday.
We got
Bryce Elder against the Nationals.
All right, because I'm seeing undecided right now for the Braves. So now I just refreshed. I like that one too. All right. So Bryce Elder at the Nationals on Monday. And then on Tuesday, we have Hunter Green at the Pirates, Mitch Keller versus the Reds, Zach Greinke at the Tigers, Joey Wentz versus the Royals, Kyle Bradish at the Red Sox, Bailey Ober versus the White Sox, and Patrick Sandoval versus the A's.
Hunter Green at the Pirates. Definitely want to do that. Patrick Sandoval against Oakland. Okay. I mean, they did just knock around Jacob deGrom this weekend.
Crazy.
But it's versus Oakland, so it won't be at the launching pad. So Patrick Sandoval, that might go okay. And my 3rd choice would be Bailey Ober against the White Sox. That's not bad either. But definitely Hunter Green. The other 2 I'm iffy on.
All right, we're going to wrap there. For Scott, I am Frank. Thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball today. We'll be back again on Tuesday. Bye-bye.